be ready to go because I don't.
Yeah. Let's go.
Okay. But they don't hear you. Okay. That's always a weird thing. They think we're like talking to ourselves. I tweeted out that we're starting now. So let's yeah. Let me take my chug. It always amazes me that Dave doesn't ever have to drink during the show. I'm like, am I just like a camel? Am I the one that?
Tough. It's like walking through the Sahara. This.
All right. After the Miami Dolphins began the season at 1-7, firing everyone was a dream scenario for Dolphins. No way this team was supposed to be this bad. Everybody needed to go, Dave Hyde. Then the Dolphins started winning games. They won 7 straight. As Dave likes to point out, they played a lot of inferior competition with mediocre quarterbacks, but they finished the season winning 8 of the final 9 games this year, which included a season-ending win over the New England Patriots, which provided Miami the first series sweep over the AFC East rival that had bullied them for 2 decades, 20 years. Dolphins swept the Patriots. Can you believe it? It also provided this franchise the first back-to-back winning seasons since 2002 and 2003. But to the shock of everyone in South Florida and the NFL landscape, that didn't save Brian Flores and his staff. After discovering that there was a rift between Flores and Tua Tagovailoa, and Flores and Chris Greer, and Flores and plenty of other people, including Dolphins owner Steve Ross, the decision was made to eliminate the common denominator. It was in the postseason press conference, Ross admitted that it was more of a firing for, how can I put this? Personality conflicts than it was necessarily about performance. Is that right, Dave? Is that how you paraphrase?
Yeah, so communication and collaboration, getting along, playing in the sandbox with everybody.
Some of us don't work well together, Dave. Me and you, we've worked well together for quite a while, and today is going to be one of our better shows, Dave.
It's going to be lively here, Omar.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I can promise you it's going to be a good show. Dave, what have you learned since Sunday when the Dolphins beat the Patriots and then started this new rebirth of the franchise?
Look, there are anecdotes dribbling out. I wrote to it, and Brian Flores got into it.
The exchange of the F-bombs.
The F-bombs. Oh, my God. Can you believe it?
Flores made a Christian quarterback curse.
And we know Brian Flores from winning his first year has taken more. He wanted more control over personnel, and he's like a water going across the floor, trying to cover more territory. He wanted more power, just as Adam Gase did after his first year, and he got and Chris Greer. Go ahead. You take more. It's like giving them rope. You'll hang yourself. And so, I've heard anecdotes. I haven't heard anything that says you got to be fired for this. Okay. This is football. And as I wrote, I went down through the years with Dolphin coaches. I wrote a column that what do you want? Nick Saban and Zach Thomas screaming at each other and stopping a practice. Do you want Jimmy Johnson calling out a player, Lamar Thomas, and holding up a contract in front of other players that Lamar's agent wanted and saying he wouldn't wipe himself with that? Do you want Marino going after David Shula. Shula cursed Lyle Blackwood to tears in a game and thought nothing of it. That happened every time. He cursed everybody. Okay, so do we want to talk people getting I wish they had said, we are firing Brian Flores because they started 1-7. His offense and that system that he set up was a disaster. It cost us the season. I could buy that, but I don't like this. He didn't get along with people stuff.
I don't necessarily think it was a he didn't get along with people stuff or he was abusive to people situations. I don't necessarily know that if it was abuse. And it's hard to sort of quantify it or put it into a place where people can digest it. But Brian Flores was an a-hole. And it's okay.
It's okay. They play hard for him.
Yeah, they play hard for him, but I don't know if a lot of them like him. And you don't necessarily have to like your coach. But here's the thing. The working relationships between an owner and a coach, a coach and his GM, and a coach and a quarterback, they all can't be bad, Dave. They all can't be bad. Am I incorrect here? You can have an owner and a star player. It didn't end. It didn't just end with the quarterback. The common denominator with Flores and people having issues with his personality and how he talked to people, and that includes me and a lot of my peers, is he was quite abrasive and it passed the line. And you can't, and I'm not saying that he doesn't care about people. And I'm not saying that he isn't a good coach. But what I am saying is, once you've created a long list of enemies or people who don't vouch for you, it's kind of hard. You don't see anybody coming out and saying, oh, God, this is, how could this be done? Because he was such a nice man. He was such a good coach. And on top of that, I think part of the reason that it was done was because, and this is an important one, Flores' offensive hires were a disaster.
Say that. Don't tell me, oh, he's sandpaper tough with personality.
No.
Tell me it's about winning. I can understand that. Don't say communication and collaboration. Listen to this. Wouldn't you be upset? Omar, wouldn't you be upset with Chris Greer with some of his personnel decisions?
Absolutely.
How about Tua's last 4 games this year? Would you be upset with some of his decisions in those games?
Absolutely, no question about it.
So, if I'm the head coach, I'm upset with these people. You bet I'm upset with them.
Well, you made this bet too.
I agree. I agree. Look, at 1-7, everybody's going to be angry at everybody in any franchise that matters, right?
And I think they handled that well.
I don't disagree with you there, Omar. I agree with you that, hey, he is a tough guy to get along with, okay? He's calling coaches in at 10 o'clock at night. Hey, we got to meet on this. When they're home, hey, we got to meet. Okay. Okay. But, after a while, it's like, well, wait a second here. So all I'm saying, he's a tough, I like that. I like that in a coach. He is 1,000% dedicated, but he's a tough guy to get along with. He's not for everybody.
Okay, and here's the genesis, and you're probably right about this. The offense that he proposed, he never delivered, and it was failure after failure after failure. And the bottom line is, coaches didn't want to work for him.
If you were to say he wasn't going to be able to put together an offensive staff, fire him. If you were to say that offensive staff he put together last year cost the season, fire him. But don't say he didn't get along with Chris Greer and he didn't get along with Tua. And I heard there was disrespect. The owner felt disrespect in a conversation. Okay, tell me it's about winning. Don't tell me it's about somebody's feelings are hurt. Okay, that's my issue.
It's about being able to work well with others. And I don't believe that an organization, it's the beginning. Here's the thing. We sit here and we complain and cry about Steve Ross doesn't fire when he should fire. And while I don't agree that Brian Flores should have been fired, I think he should have had the opportunity to rebuild his offense. But bottom line is, I didn't have any confidence that he was going to rebuild it. I thought he earned that opportunity. But if I don't have any confidence you're going to be able to do something, why am I wasting time? And this
okay,
is
Omar, if you're going to do that, why not fire Chris Greer too? If you have Justin Herbert right now, if he made that call, you're in the playoffs. You're a dangerous team in the playoffs. Okay,
so, maybe.
Well, definitely. So if
maybe
my point
Justin Herbert didn't get a better team into the playoffs. Let's just say that.
Well, that's a whole. When you have the 30th scoring defense, so
make the excuses for Justin Herbert. Tua doesn't have an offensive weapon, but obviously it's his fault. He's got one. I'm sorry. He has one offensive weapon. And no,
you made excuses for Tua all year. Let me make one excuse for Herbert. He has the 30th ranked defense, scoring defense.
Yes.
Okay, so he's got to win every game. So, but my point is, if you're going to fire Flores, okay, for whatever, clean house. Why keep? I mean, Chris Greer. What if that's the issue? Number one issue remains talent and missed draft picks. You're going down this road of a 3-year rebuild to get a franchise quarterback. Number one, that was number one issue. And B, you can't miss on draft picks if you're going to go this way. And they missed on some, so they're back to 9-8. I mean,
it's like you're reading my column that's coming out tomorrow. Listen, I don't disagree with you. However, I will say this, and I in Steve Ross's defense, we hear about all of these situations and the after effects when people are angling and spinning and trying to create a narrative that favors them. Okay? Steve Ross is in it, lives it. Here's what the plan is. Here's what's said before the execution of the draft picks. Here's what's said before free agency. So he knows where people stand in these situations. He knows.
We want communication. Let's talk about Steve Ross's communication, okay? You want to go down this road.
Let's go.
Okay. He comes in. Jeff Ireland and Tony Sperano are good friends. What happened there? And
why did it happen? You're not bringing up that, are you?
Let's go through history. That's one of them, right? So what happened? Ross takes Ireland to interview with Jim Harbaugh, and that's the end of Tony Sperano and Jeff Ireland. That was communication in a franchise. Okay, you want to come to the next regime. The Donna Ponte sides with Joe Philbin. Okay, because Steve Ross has put him in there. Right? And they don't get along with the personnel side of the team. There's the next regime downfall, Bullygate, all that stuff, okay?
All right.
Okay, the next regime comes in, all right? I mean, do we want to go?
Let's go through the Dennis Hickey and Tannenbaum shit.
There you go. Then you get Mike Tannenbaum strong arms his way in through the science, the all-important science side of football, right? And then by the end, him and Adam Gase aren't talking, right? And they're done. Okay, and why is that? Because it was a shotgun wedding put together by the owner. Okay, so now look at what happened here. You hired somebody out of Bill Belichick's tree, a guy who grew up on that. You know who he is. You know who he is.
And that's mistake number one.
Okay, here's mistake number two then. You don't get everybody on the same page from the very start.
Maybe when they were on the same page.
No, they weren't. They weren't, because look at year one. The GM is throwing people overboard for draft picks. We're tanking. We're not going to say we're tanking, but we're tanking.
We're not tanking, but we're tanking.
And what's the coach do? He's trying to win. He's trying to win. if they're on the same page, they don't win two meaningless games at the end of the year, Cincinnati, New England, and they have Joe Burrow, right? Or they have Tua with the number one pick, maybe, but they have the number one pick in the draft. And, you know, you want to talk communication. There's 13 years of miscommunication in this franchise. Okay. And who's responsible for that?
He's trying to do better, Dave. He's realized that there's a problem and he's trying to address it and hit it right when it starts, Dave.
All I'm saying is when this, I hope so. I hope it turns around.
We have always said he fires too late, a season too late. This time, maybe it was too early. I don't know. All I hear
is Chris Greer run the personnel department here.
Oh, that's a whole different subject. Let's
that's the prime subject of a rebuild like this.
It's 4 years he's run the personnel department. But anyway, listen, here's our question number one, which comes from loyal questioner Alex, who opens us up with, what changed Steve Ross's mind to make his head coach move? Like you've stated before, Ross never fires early. Why now, Dave? Why now?
Well, I think we've covered why now, right? I mean, he felt that the relationships inside the franchise, the bridges had been burned to the point it wasn't, we can't move forward with these people and who to throw overboard. And there are ample anecdotes of people didn't like Brian Flores. I mean, on the same time, I haven't heard anything that says anyone is so egregious that it's fireable, you know? So, I mean, but he's tough to get along with, no question.
I think that Steve Ross looked at all the dysfunctional relationships that he has contributed to, created, that Hyde so eloquently pointed out, and realized, hey, I got to nip this in the bud before it becomes an unworkable situation. And the reality, in my viewpoint, is I don't think Flores was going to be able to hire an offensive staff.
That's possible.
I heard from one person that I trusted, somebody that he interviewed for the offensive coordinator position, and I think I know exactly who it is. They interviewed and went running from the situation, as did Chan Gailey. You know, there are assistants who did not want to work for Brian Flores, and they were on the first thing smoking. You know, when you have so many, when things are so universal, whereas people don't want to work for you, that's tough. That's tough to overcome. And I'm not necessarily certain that it was something that Brian Flores could have overcome. And so this is part of the reason why I think Steve Ross decided that, hey, let me do this early as opposed to doing this a season too late. They got $74 million in cap space. They could remodel an entire team. And the question is, do you want Brian Flores and Chris Greer doing it? And that's an even more important question.
All right, Omar, let's go to Robert, who asks, we've had two coaches in a row that seem to have become control freaks. Is it possible that soft leadership of this organization is what allows that to happen?
I don't know if Flores was a control freak. The way that I view it is that it was a collaborative effort. Now, if you know Chris Greer and you're aware of his personality, there's a lot of meekness there. And there is a lot of, you know, if you can steamroll them and you can have your way. And as Chris Greer has told me, he's going to build the team that his head coach wants. He's going to give his head coach the quarterback that he wants. And sometimes you put your desires and your ego, and, you know, he's an egoless man. So, you know, that's not debatable, which is why I have two issues. While I'm not a staunch defender of Chris Greer, and I really don't understand why Ross didn't just pull off the Band-Aid and hire a new GM and hire a new head coach at the same time, which is the only thing that he has never done in the organization, I will say this. I don't like two things about the narratives that are being put out there. One, I don't like that this was a power struggle, because it was never a power struggle. Chris Greer was just going to give you the power. And two, I don't like the fact that people are putting out this perception that Chris Greer snaked Brian Flores. I'm sorry. That's not his personality. That's not who he is as an individual. I would have a hard time saying that I could see Chris Greer snaking somebody. Now, was it a survival situation? Maybe it was. But I don't think that Chris Greer explaining that, hey, Brian Flores is hard to work with, which is not a secret, is snaking somebody.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Greer's a nice guy. Brian Flores, you'd meet and work with him. You wouldn't call him a nice guy. You call him a driven, a committed, but nice wouldn't come up.
That's not what I would call him. But go ahead.
I mean, let me ask. There is a phrase that I came up with, and it's true. The better human being somebody is, the worse football coach they usually are. Rarely do you meet. Rarely.
You telling me Bobby Bowden's a bad human being?
Okay, NFL. I'm talking.
You telling me Tony Dungy's a bad human being?
I'm talking a lion tamer. When you have to be a lion tamer in the
Mike
NFL,
Tomlin gets it done.
I'm not around him. All I know is the nice guys I've covered are not good football coaches, and the guys who have some of that jerk in them.
You could be a jerk, but you could care. And I'm not saying that
I agree with that.
I'm not saying that Brian Flores didn't care.
There are certain people, and this is all I'll say on this issue, because I've had an encounter with Brian Flores that was not.
Well, why don't you just tell that story?
I don't.
It's in other words, it's to me, I mean, it's just a small story, but
it's a small story, but I don't want to be part of the story. But the bottom line is nobody's allowed to talk to me like that. I don't care who you are. I wouldn't let Kathy, our boss, talk to me like that. And I don't give a bleep who you are and how much power you have. You're not allowed to talk to me like that. And there was instances after instances after instances. I think that when Flores is one of those individuals, when he gets angry, he can't regulate his anger. He can't bring it down. He can't communicate effectively. And that's a detriment to leadership.
I'd agree with you on that. He needs to polish his personality. The rough edges, absolutely. And I hope it sounds like he's going to get a job, at least the national people say.
I don't think he's going to get a job.
It would benefit him to sit back for a couple years.
Here's why I don't think he's going to get a job. Who's he going to hire for his offensive coaching staff? What quarterback is he going to fix?
What quarterback? I mean, that was the problem here. Offensive coordinators, between him and the quarterback situation, they said, no, thank you. Right?
Yeah. But ultimately, and I think he is a good head coach. Just like, it's funny. I said this about Gase. I thought that Gase would be a better coach on his second go around because I thought he would mature. Okay.
And how'd that work out?
It didn't, because he learned absolutely nothing from his first tenure, and he didn't mature. There's a different level of maturation that I think Brian Flores is going to have to learn, and I think he's going to have to go work. And Bruce Arians, you can be direct, and you can be an MFer, and you could be an a-hole, but people got to know you care. People got to know you respect them. I think that there was a line that Brian Flores consistently crossed where the respect was not there. And that to me is part of the reason why you don't see many people defending him. You see the national media parroting him out as a good coach because he's a good minority hire and he satisfies the Rooney Rule, and he had a level of success, and the Dolphins are dysfunctional, and there was a power struggle. No. I don't think any of those things came into play. When you look at why Brian Flores failed here, it came down to his inability to handle personal relationships. And I can tell you there's a long list of players I'm not going to name who, while they respected him, they had issues with him. and they'd be on the first thing smoking if they could get out of here.
You know, on a 1-7 team, they better have issues with their head coach because he's probably right up there.
This was actually during the 10-6 season.
Okay, my point is, Nick Saban, players hated him.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I mean, Cam Cameron, they hated for a different reasons. He was incompetent, right?
Yes.
So players are gonna, just like your boss. We love our boss.
I love Cap.
Other than us, Omar, how many people love their bosses?
Yeah, I mean, I love Cap.
Okay. Jack wants to know, do you think we have the best head coach opening right now, the most desirable job that's open?
I would say it's right up there. There's some complications with some of these jobs. No.
Go ahead. You say why. I'll say why.
Okay. Here's the thing about these jobs. I'm always putting them with the quarterback. So the Vikings, there's Kirk Cousins. He's probably going to be moved. There was talk about him being moved. He's the highest paid player in the NFL. I'm not sure an organization is going to look at him, whoever takes over there as GM and a coach, and say, okay, this is a keeper for us. But then again, who are you going to get? Jacksonville's got Trevor Lawrence. I would like to work with Trevor Lawrence. I think that there's something there to work with. He didn't show it much this season. The Raiders' job, now that's an interesting job. They're already a playoff team. Derek Carr is there. I would argue that Derek Carr is a top 10 quarterback. Chicago, I don't want nothing to do with because I don't want to coach Justin Fields. I don't believe in Justin Fields. I don't think he's going to be a good quarterback. Hey, I could be wrong, but that's not my style of quarterback. And while I will not say that the Dolphins have their guy in Tua Tagovailoa, I will say that you can win with Tua, and I would say that you could build around Tua. It can only take you so far, though. And you also have the resources, ability, and a owner who's going to spend to get you what you need. So to me, I would argue that the Dolphins have probably the second best job behind the Raiders' job. And the Raiders, they've got a good, solid foundation. I would argue to you that on defense, the Dolphins have a good, solid foundation. The question is, can you get an offensive coach here to fix it?
All right, let me go the other way. If the first thing I'm looking at in a coach when I come into a place, two things, the owner and the quarterback.
Okay.
The owner, 13 years, hasn't hired anybody good as a coach or general manager, hasn't shown an ability to win. He's shown an ability to spend money. He wants to win. I have no doubt he's a good guy. He wants to win so badly, but he doesn't know how.
Yeah.
Okay. The quarterback, I have no idea. Those last 4 games, I look at them and I say, nope, I don't see it. I do not see it. Okay. Now, maybe a new coach comes in here and fix them up. Do I want to bet my career on that? I want to bet my career on Trevor Lawrence if I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm gonna coach up a young quarterback who's struggling, I'm gonna bet Trevor Lawrence. Okay.
Yes.
I got the Raiders job ahead of him. I got the Jacksonville.
But Jacksonville doesn't spend any money though. I
got Trevor Lawrence. I'll figure it out. Okay. You got a young team. You got some young talent there, and were so dysfunctional under Urban Meyer. I'm going to look like a genius if I win 6 or 7 games. Okay.
So you put Jacksonville as the number 1 job.
Well, I think the Raiders are the number 1 job they're in the playoffs. I mean, How many playoff jobs come open? Okay. Jacksonville's 2. The Vikings are 3 from the standpoint they lost 8 games, 7 points or less. 8 games. That has a tendency to turn around. Those things even out. So I'm thinking
they had a ton of injuries.
You got a good roster there. You got a good roster. They just need maybe a little something, maybe a little luck that we never talk about in sports. But that to me is the 3rd job. Then the Chicago and the Dolphins job. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I mean, somebody likes Fields, somebody likes Tua, somebody likes the weather in Chicago. So, I mean,
who likes the weather in Chicago?
Neither franchise has shown an ability that they understand what it takes. That's
I need answers. Who likes the weather in Chicago, Dave?
Well, I don't, but, some people do. get off the plane in May to cover heat games, and I would step out of 80-degree weather here, or 90, and I'd forget my jacket, and it'd be free. I have like 5 jackets I bought in Chicago, Omar, through the years. All right, the Miami Dolphins seem to be moving fast to find a replacement for Brian Flores, and it's necessary considering this is a competitive hiring cycle. So far, the Dolphins have put in a request to talk to Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, 49ers offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel, Dallas's Kellen Moore, another offensive coordinator. On the defensive side and experience side, Miami's requested Dan Quinn and Vance Joseph. What names do you like on the list, and who, in your opinion, should be there that isn't, Omar?
Well, let's start with the names that I like. I love Daboll. I've always loved Daboll. I mean, we can go back to last year's X's and Omar show where I said that this guy is going to be the next hot young coach. I love his personality. I love his demeanor. I love his aggressive approach. He's gone through the ringer in his NFL career, including his 2011 stop with the Dolphins, which I will argue to this day is still my favorite Dolphins offense. They had a 1,000-yard receiver in Reggie Bush, 1,200-yard receiver in Brandon Marshall. Matt Moore was their quarterback, and they started to pick up steam. The reason why they had a slow start was because they had the lockout that offseason, which means he comes in, gets hired, is trying to install a new offense. Okay, well, we begin at training camp. Well, that's going to result in a slow start. Plus, you had Chad Henne starting. You know how I feel about Chad Henne. I also like Dan Quinn. I think Dan Quinn is going to be a good retread of a head coach. And I love retreads. I really do believe that retreads can bring a lot to the table. Another retread is Doug Peterson, who it puzzles my mind why the Dolphins have not reached out to interview him, because he is the perfect fit for this team. Quarterback developer, has a history with Miami Dolphins, has a relationship with Dan Marino, comes from the Andy Reid coaching tree. There is no tree that I want to eat from more than the Andy Reid coaching tree. Then I'm also a big Marvin Lewis guy. I believe that Marvin Lewis gets a bad rap for his decade plus with the Cincinnati Bengals, who he turned into a winning franchise. Cincinnati Bengals never won a playoff game, 0-7 in the playoffs. But how about you give him some money, some resources, an owner who supports him, instead of him having to run a scouting department because you don't have a GM and you don't have a scouting staff. Like, let's give him a little bit of support. But that's my list, Dave. What's yours?
I'm going to throw out a name, and someone mentioned it to me last night. I hadn't thought of it, and Mike Munchak. He was coach in Tennessee, so he's been there.
Yeah.
He was the coach in Denver. He's being let go now. You want to solve some of your key problems. I mean, he can command a room. He's done that. Okay. He's done that. He's won okay in Tennessee. So I'm just curious. Here's my problem. I'm not going to endorse anybody. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't know these people. I've never sat down and talked with them. You got to sit down and talk to them, get to know them. Let's see what your staff looks like. How would how would your star safety, you want to bench him? What do you do? If you're Adam Gase, you don't talk to him. You let the defense. Here are issues, serious issues. That's off the top of my head that you're going to have to handle as a head coach. How are you going to handle them? Okay.
Your star quarterback wants more money all the time. How do you handle it?
Yeah, exactly. So, you need to sit down with that guy. So I'm going to judge who they hire, but to say, well, they should get this guy or that guy, there's nobody that jumps out to me that says this is what they need. Brian Daboll, who you love, and he was a fun personality when he was here. Okay, he's a good personality, and he probably benefit from Flores's iron fist personality because the players would feel a little freedom, they'd laugh, it'd be more fun, and the short term probably there'd be a gain there. And he was Tua's coach at Alabama when Tua was a freshman. Does that matter? I don't know. I don't know I'm bringing in competition for Tua, no matter who. If I'm a coach,
I'm with you.
So, but we're back to. Do you want a guy who's coached before? Do you want a first time?
No. We're not back to you want a guy who's coached before because we've never been there.
I mean, the Dolphins are okay. They've only hired first time coaches.
Yes.
Okay.
A bad idea. Horrible idea.
So, well,
and we just had a defensive coordinator, so clearly we're going to go with the offensive guy. I don't like here's who I don't like in the hiring process. Don't hire somebody who's riding the coattails of a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning or one of the NFL's elite quarterbacks, unless they helped him become elite like Dabo.
Or unless they're bringing him with them.
Yeah.
Maybe
we should call the Seattle's offensive coordinator and see if he can become a package deal.
Yeah. So
Ritzak has our next question. Would the hiring of an offensive-minded head coach negatively affect the development of our defense?
So here's where I am on the defense. Can you that staff intact? And how much of it was Brian? Look, they have the personnel for this system. This is Brian Flores' personnel. Okay. Yeah. And here's my quick sketch on why personnel and systems matter. I've covered two great middle linebackers with the Dolphins, John Offerdahl and Zach Thomas. Okay. Completely different. I mean, both were great players. Okay. Offerdahl played in a 3-4 system. Every down he's taken on 300 plus guards. Every down of his career. His career broke down after 4. He's undersized, just as Zach was in a different way. His career broke down because he had to take on those guys every play. Zach played behind 2 big, fat, good defensive linemen in a 4-3 system. He was allowed to run free. He didn't have somebody coming after him every play. And so, to me, systems matter. Brian Flores has his system up and running, and you're going to change that and tweak that and all that stuff, and they're still going to be good players. Are they going to be good players in that system?
Yeah, I think no matter what, your defenses change every year. Yes, you're going to have collateral loss when you do make a coaching change, but there's no guarantee Xavier Howard's on this team next year. There's no guarantee Byron Jones is on this team next year. And there's no guarantee Emmanuel Ogba's on this team next year. Those are 3 players who are your top players. And if they're not here, system needs to be changed anyway. So I'm not really worried or stressed about what system they run or the defense. They've got decent players on defense. Let's not act like they have superstars. There's one superstar there, and he wants his money.
And he'll have to be paid his money.
If you want to keep him, yeah. That's the bottom line.
Once again, this year, he showed he's your best player, and I'm not sure who's second. Okay, there's several players who might be second, but there's a clear number 1. Okay, so give him his money. Okay, J7 Kilo asks, is there anyone on this coaching staff you would keep if you were the new head coach?
I even though I'm a little bit, I think Josh Boyer did an excellent job the last 2 years. I have a high level of respect for him and what he accomplished. I enjoy talking to him and learning from him. Now, how much of this defense was Josh Boyer or how much of it was Brian Flores? I don't know, but he's proven to me that he's worthy of being a defensive coordinator in the NFL. Eric Stutzville, I have a high level of respect for him as a running back coach, as a leader, even though his running backs never really took off or the run game never took off. George Godsey, I do have respect for him as a tight end coach, as a leader, even though his offense never took off. This 2-coordinator system was just a bad idea to begin with, and I think.
Well, let's give George Godsey some props from this standpoint. The first month plus, he wasn't calling the plays. He wasn't in control. When he got in control, it became a functioning offense. At least it became. I thought it was much better run with still problems in personnel, but much
had a better quarterback too. But yes, I don't disagree with you. And then the star of the staff to me is Gerald Alexander. I think he's going to be a star in the league. I think he's going to be a head coach eventually. He's probably got a lot to learn still. He's the one person on this staff that if he's under contract, I make sure he stays here, or I try to encourage him to stay here.
Okay, Eli wants to know, what would be some red flags to look for during the new coaching search? What's the ideal timing for him, the new coach and his assistants in place?
I think we got to look at the history of where we've been, in terms of Dave Wanstead, Cam Cameron, Tony Sperano, Joe Philbin, Adam Gase, Brian Flores. The timetables and how they got those jobs all varied. The span of how long you had to wait. I don't think you should rush to make these decisions. But I would feel a lot more comfortable if I had a trust and a belief in the person who is making the decision. Unfortunately, we've got that long list of people.
Let's stop there. Who's making the decision?
I think it's Chris Grier.
You know what's going to happen? It's going to be the same. It'll be the same committee.
Yeah.
Steve Ross, Tom Garfinkel, Chris Grier, Dan Marino as consultant. We'll meet with the coach. Who's making the decision?
Obviously, Chris Grier's personality.
Chris Grier doesn't make decisions, Omar.
You're correct.
You're correct. Say, he'll put it out there, and okay, you like that. He'll see. Who's Steve Ross want?
He doesn't. People who have worked with him and people who have been his contemporaries, their main criticism of Chris Grier is he doesn't have a conviction. He never has a conviction, and never takes a strong stance. I disagree with that, and I can give you a perfect example. When they selected Minkah Fitzpatrick.
That's the one example, right? Absolutely. I was going to raise that.
He was a big advocate for drafting Rashad Jones. I think that Steve Ross needs to give Chris Grier the directive. You are the head man in charge. We will live and die based on your decisions. It's time for you to grow a pair.
But wait a second, he picked the last coach.
Yeah, that's the uncomfortable part. I mean, in theory, it was supposed to work. How did he know this guy was a...
Isn't he supposed to know? I mean, in that part of doing your...
I mean, if you're getting from the Belichick tree, you got to expect it to be a jerk now. That's just... I mean, look at the history of the Belichick tree. It's a long line of jerks. So hey, his upbringing, they vetted the crap out of the man. They just didn't understand he had a temper problem, and didn't know how to talk to people respectfully. Soured a lot of relationships.
So we turn the page once more.
Hey, man, look at Jacksonville. They turned the page after 1 year. Look at Raiders. Good God.
You want to compare yourself to Jacksonville? That's...
Look at the Broncos. The NFL's gone from a 4-year cycle to a 3-year cycle, Dave. Don't judge it. Don't judge it.
All right.
Soon we'll be at a 2-year cycle. You can't get it done in 2 years. Okay, we got to get the next guy.
All right.
Where are we at? As information begins to trickle in, we both heard stories about the rift between Brian Flores and Tua Tagovailoa, the F-bombs.
Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah, the team's quarterback who produced a 13-8 record as Miami starter wasn't necessarily getting along with Brian Flores. And surprise, surprise, Deshaun Watson gate contributed to it. I don't know exactly. I can't prove where Flores stood in that whole. A lot of people want to say he was the one pushing for it.
I'm sure he was for it. If he wasn't for it, it wouldn't have happened. I mean, yeah, they were all for it. Let's not.
Yes,
Nobody stopped it. Okay, the owner didn't stop it. The GM didn't stop it. The coach didn't stop. They were all in on it. Okay, I mean, let's be honest.
And during the loss to Tennessee, which Tua Tagovailoa had a dismal game, there was an exchange of F-bombs between him and Flores. I think Flores was the agitator, but Tua had enough of his you-know-what. And he told Flores, you need to learn how to talk to people. And you need to bleeping learn how to talk to people. And Flores made a Christian curse. And I don't know, that was what I felt was the beginning of the end. And I truly do believe that at that point, Tua realized, I can't play for this guy. Just like Minka Fitzpatrick, my buddy, I'm out.
Yeah, I never, from talking to people, I don't feel there was this, I can't play for him. I hate him. I don't get that feeling now. I get the feeling there's kind of a bit of relief that he's gone. But in talking to people, especially now, I don't get the feel that there was.
He doesn't want the perception that he can't be coached hard. But here's what I do know. Tua had an opportunity to become a captain. But because that meant he would have to have more interaction with Brian Flores, he sat back and didn't want it. Because
that is weak. I don't believe that. I don't want.
He was already viewed as a leader on the team, but he did not want to sit in that leadership council.
By who? Seriously, do those teams think of him as a leader, Omar? I'm not saying they don't think of him. I'm not saying he's not a leader, but do they look at him and say he's the man?
They look at him and say that he can get the job done, but they do not look at him and say he's the man. And it has troubled me. You know how I feel about Tua. You know I'm a staunch believer in Tua. There are a lot of people on that team who won games with him, know the difference between him and Jacoby Brissett, who do not believe in Tua. And that's always been hard for me to digest. And I always felt like this has to do with Deshaun Watson being out there, or it has to do with Russell Wilson being out there, or it has to do with them wanting.
It has to do with what you see on the field.
Yes, it does. They do not believe in his arm.
Right.
And it's hard to sit here and fight against that when they watch it every day in practice. He cannot make certain NFL throws that are just required. And they know that putting him out on the field means you're going to have a limited offense. I would argue, get a better running game, get a better offensive line, get more weapons, get better fitting weapons, and you can make it work. Now, work meaning, can it win a championship? I don't know about all that. But can it win games? He's already proven to you he can win games.
He can win games. He can be an average NFL quarterback. If that's what you want, get the right.
I think part of the problem is that he has been sold and billed as a savior, and I take ownership for it.
No, it's not just you, Omar. The point of this 3-year rebuild, all we heard, look, we're going to get a franchise quarterback. We are doing this stupid rebuilding plan to get a franchise quarterback. And my thought, you better get a franchise quarterback out of it, okay? Because the franchise that's dumb enough to go down this road, are they going to be smart enough to pick the right quarterback without it being gift wrapped for them at number one? And okay, how important is Tua's presence and influence what this franchise does next, Omar?
I don't know if it is going to be important. I mean, the right thing to say is that Tua is our guy, which Steve Ross has come out and said. I'm sure when Chris Greer talks to us in the Senior Bowl, he's going to come out and say that too. And he's your guy until you can find somebody better. They're going to try to build it right around Tua. But let me ask you this question, and this is, it's got to be in the back of your mind. Deshaun Watson, as I've said, settles his legal issues. Understand, it's been nearly a full year. He still hasn't been charged with anything. Let's say he settles his legal issues financially and has a clear name. Obviously, there's going to be smear on his name. Do you do what it takes to go out and get him, knowing that he is arguably an elite quarterback, if he still wants to be with you?
Well, here, let's start here. I really didn't like how Steve Ross answered that question, where he said that will be left up to the next coach.
Why not?
Because that's an owner's decision. The owner's decision is, do I want a guy facing 22 sexual misconduct allegations as the face of my franchise? That starts there. It starts with the owner.
He clearly does,
yes, if
he clearly does.
If he says yes, then it goes to the coach. Do you want him? But before, it's not a coach's, it's not a GM's decision. It is the owner's decision. Okay.
And his answer is yes, Dave. His answer is yes.
Well, he didn't answer. It's not, but he should say, I'm all for it if the coach is all for it. Okay. It's his decision.
I think he didn't want to make this about Watson and the currency and the trade, and he wanted to keep it clean, show Tua a sign of support, because they did meet with Tua before they met with the media. They met with Tua, they sat down with Tua from what I'm hearing, and they told him, you're our guy. And, you know, that I think that was a little bit to quiet the Tua camp, which, you know, they've been out there doing their thing.
Well, it's uncomfortable. It was an uncomfortable year for Tua. I mean, to be honest, I mean,
no quarterback hasn't been given this limited level of support ever in this organization. Right. And so you got to feel for him in some regard. But, you know, if you are not committed to a relationship, then don't be in a relationship.
Well, here's the thing. You don't hear teams that are sure of their quarterback. I don't even know who some of their backup quarterbacks are. But if I'm the Dolphins, I go out and I get another quarterback because I don't know what Tua is. I can't trust what he was watching those last 4 games. The Jets game where he threw the interception, they kind of from there on, I was like, wow, the season's a little on the line. He's got some experience. He's got whatever he's got. The offense, he got 200-yard games out of the rushing games in those 4 games.
You have to be a rushing team with Tua. And that might be an uncomfortable place.
Yeah, I you know, good luck. We'll see. That you can be a winning team, you can be a playoff team. You're not a championship team unless every other area is elite. Okay, and that's what you gotta be shooting for. Okay, Eric Ross, did you find Steve Ross saying the QB situation, depending on the next coach, as a potential sign to they want to draft during the 2020 draft?
I don't think. Here's the one thing that I want to say, and I really want to get through this. For people who are putting it out there that Brian Flores wanted Justin Herbert, that's a lie. Because you know what? You know how I know that's a lie? Because if Brian Flores ever said the words, I want Justin Herbert, you know who Chris Greer is going to pick? He's going to pick Justin Herbert. Because that's Chris Greer's personality. So,
that is true. That is true.
So do not. I hate this point where spin and narrative and every camp is doing it now, except for Chris Greer's camp. Chris Greer, he'll just take all the bullets because
he doesn't really have a camp. I mean, almost to his credit, but
to his detriment as well.
And to his detriment as well.
But when he does talk, and he will talk, he will have to air it out on all these things. And I've always found him to be honest and transparent. That's just who he is.
And the point there is Chris Greer. You know, Chris Greer will give the coach, what quarterback he wants, because he has said, "I'll give the coach any player he wants."
Yes.
I'm never going to pick one for me, which seems a little to me. Look, there's got to be a fist pounding the table on the quarterback on any position if there's disagreement. I mean, but I will say he's not the only GM to say that. Okay. A lot of them say if the coach doesn't like this player, wants this player, and I want this player, we'll go to somebody else entirely, rather than one of us take a player we don't like. So, I mean, anyway, Gary wants to know, I'm lacking confidence in the organization. What direction do the Dolphins need to go with this coaching search to install confidence with you and Dave, Omar?
For me, Dave, it's about finding somebody who can fix this offense and potentially fix Tua, or potentially land one of the elite quarterbacks, whether it be Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. I think that's the list of the elite quarterbacks. I'm also a Jimmy Garoppolo guy. I wouldn't mind doing a little 2-step with Jimmy. Don't look at me like that.
Omar.
Team in the playoffs.
Omar.
Don't look at me like that.
Team in the Super Bowl, too, if you want to go there.
Don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that. I'm a Jimmy Garoppolo guy. I've always been a Jimmy Garoppolo guy. He was on one of my man crush lists. Can he stay healthy? No. But, you know, he can get you.
When guys tell you who they are, you got to believe them on the health stuff, right? I mean,
But I also like guys who have proven that they can develop a quarterback. Doug Peterson developed Carson Wentz, and he cleaned up Nick Foles.
Did he develop him, or did the Indianapolis coach Frank Reich develop him? That's the issue. You need to get behind do some homework that we can't really in the media. You need to talk to coaches on that staff honestly if you're going to get Peterson and find that out.
You're absolutely right, Brian Daboll. We know who he developed. He developed Josh Allen, a quarterback that a lot of people, including myself, hand raised, thought had unfixable problems. Well, he fixed them. So that to me is a level of respect that I will hold and give them. As I said, Byron Leftwich, I'm sorry, you're not riding Tom Brady's coattail to a head coaching job.
I heard the Dolphins were interested in him. I keep waiting for them to put him up there to see if that's true. Okay, Finn wants to know, Chris Greer has one player, Xavier Howard, from his 2016 draft, one player in Isaiah Ford from his 2017 draft. Shouldn't those players be the core of this team? Why does Ross think Greer drafts well?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think Greer has just the same amount of hits and misses as everybody else. I think the changes in coaches and regimes and has impacted a lot of these draft classes. Some guys, they just decided that they weren't going to sign in free agency. Some guys like Raekwon McMillan just weren't a good fit for this defense. The bottom line is, does Chris Greer draft good players? Generally, yes. Are they franchise-changing players? Typically, no. We need somebody who can draft franchise-changing players.
Look, aside from one position, I don't care who he misses on. The question is, who's he hit on? Everybody misses. Okay. So, we can go through anyway, who he missed on. The question is, who's he hit on and who's here? Okay. And the problem with this rebuild, you couldn't miss. You can't miss. You tore it down to the studs, to the ground so badly that you're saying, oh, we're going to hit on all our draft picks. And that put the whole burden on Chris Greer. And so the starting question was, do you want Chris Greer to be your GM to go through this rebuild? I mean, that you put the whole burden on whoever was picking the players. Okay. And you're going to miss some. And he missed
on that offensive line.
He didn't get the quarterback who's Pro Bowls right now. He missed enough where you're right back to where you were.
Right. He missed on the quarterback. He missed on the offensive line. He missed on the running game. And which explains why you have the 29th offense in the NFL. Kyle has our final question. What defensive players would suffer most with a defensive scheme change, Dave?
Oh, that's a great question. And I haven't really sat back and considered it too much right now.
Collateral loss, Dave. It's always going to be collateral loss, and the defense usually pays the steepest price. Typically. Eric Rowe. I would be surprised if he's back this year.
They have enough young parts to move. But the thing is, again, they were drafted for that defense.
Yeah.
And some of them, like Andrew Van Ginkel. Okay.
Yeah. That's
where does he fit? He is a great in this system, fit very good.
Now they go to a 4-3.
Yeah. What do you do with a guy like that? I mean, he'll move and he'll play, but he was system bought for this one.
I don't even know if he's that great for this system, but yeah, Landon Roberts.
He made a lot of plays this year. He made about
6 plays. Landon Roberts is a guy that is specifically a scheme fit for this defense. Brandon Jones is a guy that I think is specifically a scheme fit for this defense. I think there's a lot of talk that Byron Jones might not be back. I don't believe it because he's got guaranteed contract. But he seems to think that he might not be back. And Xavier, as I always keep saying to you, pay the man. Otherwise, he wants to be on the first thing out smoking. So,
and he should. It's a business decision here.
It's a bit, as I always say with Xavier, Make sure your business is taken care of. Otherwise, it's not going to be pretty. So, and Emmanuel Agba, tough decision. There are going to be some tough decisions for whoever takes over. But Chris Greer has an understanding. He's built this. It's interesting that he's here to continue to build it. $74 million in cash.
Are we rebuilding or building? Where are we at in our verbs here? Which way are we going?
We're refurbishing.
For refurbishing, I love that. We're refurbishing now. Okay, we rebuilt, but we didn't completely. So
the design just wasn't right. You had to live in it for a minute.
How many years do you get to refurbish? 2 years down the line?
I think a refurbish, 9 months. Like you should know where you are in 9 months. But it always interesting to see the dynamic of what's happening. We're doing another head coach search, Dave, my 6th. I don't even want to know what the number is for you.
I don't want to count them. Actually, it's not many more than you because there was Shula and Jim, and then 2000. They really
Shula, Jimmy, and Wanstead and Saban, and then my collection. But my collection's much worse than your collection. Let's just put it there. X's and Omar is brought to you by the Sun Sentinel. We're always looking for a sponsor. We're going to continue to do these shows until the Dolphins have named a new head coach. We'll put out the smoke signal when the Dolphins have named a new head coach. You can always find X's and Omar any place you find podcasts, Apple, Spotify. We are here on YouTube as well, which is how most of you are watching it live. And you can find the segments broken down on the Sun Sentinel's website later on, usually by 5 o'clock. Thank you for joining me, Dave. I will see you next week, Wednesday at noon, to discuss the latest in As the Dolphins World Turns.